Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 1 of the WeCOACH Podcast, presented by our partner Hudl on WIS Sports Radio. Hudl is leveling the playing field for women in sports, both through the technology they create and important events like Breakthrough Summit, co-hosted and co-created with WeCOACH. All podcast episodes are inspired by collective input from our WeCOACH community. Please join us every 2 weeks for thought-provoking discussions focused on timely topics of national significance impacting the coaching profession. I'll be your host, Vanessa Fuchs, CEO of WeCOACH, a one-of-a-kind nonprofit dedicated to offering year-round growth and leadership development to recruit, advance, and retain women coaches in all sports and levels. This podcast is a co-production of WIS Sports Radio and WeCOACH. Being my first episode, I must give a shout out to our WIS partner and podcast producer, Chris Stafford. Chris, I can't thank you enough for all of your support in getting us to our first recording. WIS Sports Radio is the world's largest podcast network for women's sports with over 2 million listeners. We look forward to bringing you new shows dropping every other Thursday. This is now month 3 for me with WeCOACH. And with this being my first podcast episode, I thought it would be fitting to have 2 of my very special people who've had a tremendous influence on my life, my coach and my teammate. My first day on the job with WeCOACH was the same day my college coach, Coach Sue Semrau, announced her retirement from Florida State University after 25 years. And my second week at WeCOACH, my former college teammate and roommate of 4 years, Brooke Wyckoff, was announced as the new head coach at Florida State. I'm honored that you both are my first guests, and I can't thank you enough for the support you've offered to me. Welcome to the show, Sue and Brooke.
Thanks, V. So great to be here.
It's surreal, Vanessa. I tell you, this time and this podcast is really near and dear to my heart.
Well, I've been having a blast over the last couple of months. We're thrilled to have our podcast relaunched, and certainly means a lot to me that you both have joined as my very first guests. And Sue, we'll kick it off. I first wanted to just talk about you becoming a head coach in your young 30s. I like to say that we came in as freshmen together. Brooke and I were freshmen playing for Sue her very first season at Florida State. And it was your first and only head coaching job. So could you talk about, besides winning, Sue, what were some of the keys that allowed you to remain at the same institution for the duration of your 25-year head coaching career?
Well, Vanessa, 25 years ago was a long time ago. And so I don't even know that you know this, but I was a head coach at the college level at a Division III college before coming to Florida State. I felt like I kind of cut my teeth there at Occidental College in Los Angeles after being a high school assistant coach, and jumped right in while I was getting my master's degree at the University of Southern California. So, but certainly didn't expect the jump to Division I head coaching as quickly as it came. But I cut my teeth a long time with coaching 2 sports at Occidental, and then as an assistant coach for another 6 years. So it was 10 years in coaching before I was able to step into the position at Florida State. And I will say that the key for me was just believing that there was always more than what was in front of me. And the people that I heard early on, surround yourself with great people. And the people that I was surrounded with were fantastic. And I think saw the vision that I had for Florida State, and worked extremely hard to create opportunities for that vision to come. We're part of that. I mean, from day one, I didn't get a chance to recruit you to Florida State. And I show up, and here are these 3 amazing freshmen that I had nothing to do with your recruitment process, but was really had the gift of being able to, for 4 years, do that freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year together. So it was an awful lot of fun.
You finished at Florida State as the all-time winningest women's basketball coach in school history. And you certainly left many legacies, lots of winning. But I really find it impressive, Sue, your coaching tree. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the things you did throughout your career to help raise up our next generation of coaches. You would always, I remember, host at the Final Fours receptions and gatherings for those coaches who worked with you and have now gone on to continue their coaching career at other stops. You certainly poured into Brooke and have been a primary reason that she's had an opportunity like she does to now lead Florida State's program. Talk about the importance of current coaches helping to build the pipeline of future coaches, and what were some strategies that you utilized to help encourage particularly women to get into the coaching profession?
Well, I mentioned earlier about the quality of people that I was fortunate enough to surround myself with. And so if you have that quality of people, you want to pour into them. And so you watch their desire to progress and to grow into another level in this profession. And so really just watching that makes you want to pour into people that have such passion and purpose. And so being able to do that was just a gift. It was really part of the biggest joy of coaching, that and being able to pour into the student athletes who want to be part of helping them to do what it is they want to do. And a lot of times that means listening to them. Just different players wanted to do different things. So listening to coaches and seeing graduate assistants come in and then not thinking they had any desire in coaching. I didn't think Brooke had any desire to coach, but then having them come in and listen and having them get excited about it and try to give them an opportunity to prepare for the next step. It's been a thrill to watch them go out and be highly successful because of who they are.
So good. I wanted to also ask you, I remember our very first team meeting as freshmen, and when you came in sharing with us your philosophy that you were going to treat us as people first, students second, and athletes third. And you really got an opportunity during the 2020-21 season to live that out when you made the decision to step away from coaching to focus on you and your families. So first, I want an update to hear how your mom, Rosemary. Hi, Jerry and Rosemary. We love you. How Rosemary's doing. But then can you share a little bit about that decision of taking some time away from coaching? Was there anything you learned during that year?
I first want to say that one of the biggest gifts that I have been given is the opportunity to listen to former student athletes speak those words, Vanessa, just knowing that really is what we were about, that it was about the person first. And Angel Gray, who played for me at Florida State, was doing a shout out for some things we're doing at Florida State. And it just spilled out of her mouth. And I just thought, gosh, that is the people that have been around Florida State continuing to echo that message. And so that message echoed for me during that time. I need to put my money where my mouth is here, that if I'm saying that we are going to cultivate the person first, how can I not be an example of that to my own family? And so it was just like having coaches around you that every single day you look at them and they hold you accountable. They don't say anything, but they know the mission, they know the vision. And so I'm looking myself in the mirror, I'm looking at my family, and I'm saying, am I going to put this first? Am I going to put people first? And so the decision was already made through years and years of living this this mission. So, but my mom's doing great. It was best decision I've ever made in my life to have that opportunity to spend time with her. I got to spend probably 10 days, 2 weeks a year with her up until this time. And so it was great. And she's doing fantastic. And I'm very, very thankful for that.
And we are as well. Rosemary and Jerry are found often on the sidelines at Florida State women's basketball games over the years. And so we're thrilled to hear she's doing well in her recovery. Brooke, I wanted to talk a little bit about you. I can't say enough how thrilled I am for you and Florida State that you're now at the helm. And you're now leading as a first-time head coach the same program where you enjoyed a highly decorated playing career. I mean, your jersey is hanging in the rafters of the Tucker Center. Discuss how you've spent your time, focused your time recently after taking over the reins, and what's helped you the most. You were able to serve as interim head coach during the 2020-21 year when Sue took a sabbatical. What helped you the most from that experience that now will translate now that you're the full-time permanent head coach?
Well, first of all, let me just officially say and echo you and what Coach Sue have been saying, that this is such an awesome time just to be on this amazing podcast with you, Vanessa, and with Coach Sue, and just reminiscing back over all these years and how proud I am of all of us and of you, Vanessa, for what you're doing, and just so thankful for Coach Sue and proud of her as well. But this just stepping into this position 2 months ago is a lot different than what it was like to be the interim head coach in the 2020-2021 season. That was the COVID year where we were, just under heavy COVID restrictions, playing in front of no fans and having games canceled left and right. So that experience, it was great in the sense of, you're in charge of something. It's pretty much all on you as an interim head coach, although the program was still Coach Sue's, and it ultimately was going to fall on her, whatever went on. But I was left in charge. So just being, the person that in the day-to-day things that you come in to the office or you come into the gym, everyone is looking at you to see, what's today going to be like? It was a great opportunity to be that person in the day-to-day to set the tone. And doing that during the COVID season was a lot different. In some ways more difficult, in some ways easier than it is now, as we're all, more or less back to normal life. So I'm thankful for that, just having that opportunity to live in the day-to-day of, all eyes on you, all ears listening to what you're going to say, and your words meaning a little bit more than they do as an assistant. But since I've taken this role 2 months ago, to be honest, it's been about recruiting, and it's been about re-recruiting the players that were already on our roster, dealing with transferring out, dealing with recruiting transfers to come in, and just literally, that's really what it's been. I am very blessed to, be coming into this new role in a place where I'm not starting from ground zero. I didn't have to hire a whole new staff. The majority of our staff stayed on, and I'm so thankful for that. And again, that's a tribute to Coach Sue, just again, surrounding herself with great people and building up a foundation of a staff and a program that I get to just kind of walk into and hopefully build on and move forward. But I'm very, very fortunate not to have dealt with, coming in and, starting from scratch with everybody around me. So that's really allowed me to and the rest of the staff, for us to really focus on, what's our team going to look like next year in terms of personnel, and pouring into those players that are still here, and really developing relationships with those that are new and incoming.
You mentioned the focus on recruiting. I want to go back to that. At the time you were announced, like many programs are facing around the country, there were some players who opted to enter the NCAA transfer portal. This is a huge topic of conversation amongst our WeCOACH community. And I was just curious to hear, how did you handle that? What are the messages you're trying to convey to your players in those moments, in those conversations, when they come to you and express that they're leaning towards considering transferring? How do you handle those moments?
Yeah, well, the first thing to understand, and again, it's a learning process. I'm not going to say that I have it all figured out and handled every situation perfectly. I'm learning every single day how to navigate what really is a new normal for all of us in this profession with the transfer portal. And the, not only the transfer portal, but the one-time transfer waiver, that really changed everything, that student athletes can go and play immediately anywhere, in conference even. And that is so different and new. And so really what I've learned is that just taking it situation by situation. Every player is different. They are coming to you for different reasons. They are coming from, a place of either maybe they haven't played as much as they wanted to. Maybe they're just looking for something different. They've graduated and, from our institution, and they just want to try something else with that fifth year, that COVID year they have. Maybe, it could be for all kinds of reasons. And that's what we're finding out, is that there is no formula to this. There's no easy solution, and the reality of it is it's going to hurt, and this is a business, but like we've talked about from the top of the show, and what Coach Sue has instilled in us from 25 years ago, that this is about relationships. This is about people first. And that's how it's been here at Florida State. And when you're dealing with young people, it has to be about relationships to some degree, and so when it comes time to have these conversations, hard conversations, there's gonna be there's an emotional side to it, on both sides. And so that's okay. And then, we acknowledge that, and then we move forward as best we can in different directions, or in the same direction if those conversations lead to, okay, we're good and we're going to continue together here at Florida State. So it's been navigating that, the emotional ups and downs of it, coming to terms with the fact that this is the new normal, and everybody's pretty much in the same boat across the country, and looking at it as an opportunity, as people move on and do different things. That everybody has their own choice. Now let's look at this opportunity to bring student athletes in that are going to move us forward in a different way, or bring a different skill set, or bring a new personality or background to our program, and provide light in that way, because it's an opportunity for these student athletes that are moving on. They're looking at it as that as well. Something new, something different. So that's how we're approaching it here.
The WeCOACH Podcast will be right back after this commercial break.
As I listen to you talk about the differences in each one of these student athletes that you're leading, it reminds me of something I learned from a coach several years ago at a coaching summit that I was attending. A coach said, there's a flaw in the golden rule. it's not treat people how you prefer to be treated. We really need to strive as human beings to treat people how they prefer to be treated. And I think especially coaches in your role, that's so important to learn the individual differences in each one of these people that you're coaching, and then try to build those relationships around those differences and flex your style to accommodate and best resonate with the different student athletes that you're working with day to day. I wanted to go back to, you're announced as the new head coach. Next is usually the contract negotiation process. This is something that a lot of our coaches reach out to me and to our staff to ask for advice. What are the things they need to be thinking about? What might they not be aware of? What might be a strategy going into those negotiations? So I was just wondering, Brooke, if you had any advice for our WeCOACH community on your experience with contract negotiations, and was there anything that you weren't aware of that or that you didn't anticipate that you had to work through?
Yeah, that has been an interesting experience, and one I didn't really have to address my first time as interim head coach. There was no major, contract negotiation then. So, on top of everything you're dealing with of being announced and trying to get things set in motion, you have this contract negotiation that is complicated at times. And what I've learned really through the process is that it is good to have an advocate, someone, a different voice, if you can. As I love our athletic director, we have a great relationship in Michael Offord, and he's been amazing in this whole process with me. That being said, I still, wasn't comfortable necessarily negotiating on my behalf for some things that I felt were important to me and to what we needed here, for women's basketball. And so that's why I have an agent. I use an agent. And I think in women's basketball, especially, that's become more and more common for coaches and assistant coaches to have an agent, and not just to do contract negotiations, but really my agent has helped me, with professional development and preparing for interviews and just a sounding board, throughout the last few years as I'm an assistant thinking about becoming a head coach someday. So when it came time for the contract negotiations, I wanted to have somebody there to negotiate on my behalf. Things that, there were things that I hadn't thought about or had any, basis of just to even know if it was good or bad, something like a buyout. Something like those types of things. Like what is a buyout? How much should that be? Those types of things. Or if I were to, on both sides of it, like if they were to go in a different direction here, or if I were to want to take another job somewhere else, like what are those numbers? How do those numbers line up? The importance of the amount of years on your contract and what that means in recruiting and because it does, everyone, on the administration side, and just everyone has their different opinion and view of how this thing works, in terms of what a contract means, not only to the person that's signing it and getting paid by it, but what it means to the outside world, what it means to assistants you're trying to bring in, what your contract means to people you're trying to recruit. You just don't really think about that or feel that weight when you're an assistant coach, and how just that perception of what your contract looks like and says, how that's viewed and how people view your program in general because of it. So those would be the things I would say is just, have somebody that can advocate on your behalf, so you don't have to have those hard conversations necessarily about the nitty-gritty of a contract. And also just, just taking your time and being able to really understand your non-negotiables, so to speak. Like, what kinds of things are you, for example, like, are you willing to take less money in salary, for another year on the contract? Or are you willing to, give up this to really get that? And again, knowing what's important, what you're going to need for your program, what's important to you. And it's because it's not just about like, oh, how much am I going to get paid every year? It's so much more than that. So it really helps to have somebody like an agent in your corner, explaining these things to you and advocating on your behalf.
And Vanessa, I would jump in and echo what Brooke's saying. It is extremely difficult to defend your own integrity. And especially when you are supposed to be in a positive relationship with an athletic director who is presenting this contract to you. So that interim person, it used to be back when I started that the athletic director didn't work with agents. And so the reason I had an agent was to look over a 14-page contract that I didn't understand anything about. I do think it's really valuable. I had an older coach who is interested in maybe moving to another school at some point, call me and say, hey, help me understand. Is an agent important? And I'm thinking, yes, yes. So that is a question. And I think a lot of people that are a part of WeCOACH do need great guidance in this area.
You both mentioned the importance of an advocate, and that's some really good insight that you both shared. Thank you for that. Brooke, you certainly had an advocate in Sue over the years. And Sue, I was wondering if you'd share a little bit about some of the intentional ways that you were best positioning Brooke for the opportunity, such as to lead the Florida State program. What were some of the things that you either delegated to Brooke to handle for the program? And then also, once she was announced and it was determined that she would be next in line to lead, what was some advice that you gave her as she was transitioning into the permanent role?
Well, I took a page out of Coach Bowden's book, honestly. He was such a great mentor and caregiver to me. And I really saw the way that he directed things. And I thought, gosh, why can't this work for women's basketball to have an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator? We always had a recruiting coordinator, and that was something that I remember serving in. But as soon as I was able to figure out how to do that and remain involved in the way that I needed to on the court, I think the best thing that I was able to do was to bring in someone to be a recruiting coordinator. And Brooke came in and was a recruiting coordinator by fire. I mean, it was just like, look, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And she did a phenomenal job. I mean, both of you two are so intelligent, and it's your passion and intelligence that I knew made me know for both of you that you could do anything you wanted to. And so you go from recruiting coordinator to the defensive coordinator. And she did a phenomenal job with that. I mean, just because really that was her passion. I couldn't get her to shoot the ball, if you can remember, Vanessa. So, to get somebody who was the all-time leader in blocks at that point, who would fly all over the floor, to have a passion and to teach the defensive system that we had in place, to tweak it when she saw fit, those types of experiences where you trust the individual, you follow up behind, you challenge the dog out of them, and at the same time really try to be encouraging, I think was really important in the growth of any of my assistants. Then to move into the offensive coordination spot, and because I do think that piece of it is the most delicate, it's the most strategic. It's if you can't score, you can't win. Now I'm a coach who goes back to those first two and thinks those are the most important foundationally, but if you don't have somebody that can help you to put players into a position to score once you've gotten stops, then, that's, just tough. So, Brooke was able to do all three of those at a high level. And then during the COVID year, handle budget, handle huge decisions. I think she handled COVID far better than I would have handled COVID. And then last year, coming back that I needed to not just come and reinsert myself. And it was really hard to not do this with my personality, but I've always wanted to be, I've always wanted to be different than who I was as a coach. And this gave me an opportunity to try. And I think it gave me an opportunity to step back in some ways and let Brooke take over some of the day-to-day in the real time, not necessarily COVID time. So, but through all that, I think the most important thing is that to encourage coaches to do it their way and to do it with their personality. And Brooke just needs to be who she is, and she will be highly successful. She doesn't need to try to be me or you or someone else in the coaching profession in order to get it done well. She needs to be who she is and just put into play the things that she's learned throughout the years, not just as a coach at Florida State, but as a player, through the professional ranks and all she's learned from all of those different coaches.
Well, Brooke, you've done a phenomenal job, certainly in your coaching career, and have enjoyed a lot of success. But I think it's safe to say one of your biggest accomplishments is the birth of your daughter, Avery. Hi, Avery. Phoenix and Frankie miss you. And Avery was born in 2013. So not only are you now a head coach at a major Division I program, but you're continuing to build up and raise an incredible. I wanted to ask you to share a little bit about the initiative that you started with the WBCA, Moms in Coaching. And is there advice, Brooke, that you could offer to first-time moms who are also trying to, if there is such a thing, strike a balance between a career in coaching and also being a really incredible mother to a son or daughter at home?
Well, I first of all, thank you for the opportunity, Vanessa, to speak on Moms in Coaching, because it's something that is near and dear to my heart. And I will say that, when I was pregnant, it was when the idea for Moms in Coaching started to percolate. I am so fortunate just for so many reasons, and this was another one, to be working for Coach Sue and to be loved by Coach Sue, that she was the most supportive and understanding and nurturing boss, and in that moment for me, that I could have ever dreamed of having. And that is something that so many moms or moms to be don't have, unfortunately, in a boss or in coworkers. But many do. And that makes a huge difference. But even though I had that support from Coach Sue and from my colleagues, there wasn't anyone that I knew personally or that I was working with that also had kids, that was a mother. We had someone on staff that was a dad and had kids, but it's different. It's obviously just a different role. And so I began to look around and say, well, who's done this before? I haven't seen it done. And while I happened to be out on the road in July, which is a huge recruiting period for women's basketball, where you see, every coach in the country while we're sitting and watching these AAU tournaments. And so it was becoming obvious that I was pregnant. And so I had other coaches coming out of the woodwork up to me like, "Oh, you're pregnant. Congratulations," and start up a conversation. And I'm like, yeah, you're a mom? Like, you have kids too? You know, when we're coaching, obviously on the sidelines, you don't see people's kids with them during games. And then when we're out on the road recruiting, which is the other time we see other coaches, usually we don't have, our kids with us. So I had so many women coming up to me and saying, yeah, I have 2 kids, I have 1 kid, or I have 18-year-old kids, or I have a 3-year-old, and began to share their story and also their advice. And that advice that they were giving me, first of all, just made me feel, it was like a sigh of relief, just that, wow, thank you. Yes, that advice is I'm going to use that, but also that there's other people doing this. I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And that was the biggest thing that started me thinking, okay, if I'm feeling this, other people have to be feeling like this. Mothers, that had kids of all ages were saying they still felt like that, and they'd already been living it out. So we started to talk about, man, if we could all get into a room together and just all talk and support each other and give advice and just see each other. How cool would that be? So that's really where Moms in Coaching came out of. It's like, we need to get together. Again, Coach Sue to the rescue. Coach Sue was the president of the WVCA at the time. And so we had the WVCA really, on the forefront of all of our minds they're our organization that really provide that kind of infrastructure where we can get groups together. And so they were amazing in allowing us to have a spot at the convention at the Final Four. And this was now 8 years ago. And so every year we've been getting together at the Final Four as part of the WVCA convention. And it's just so cool to see moms in a room, look around and be like, all these women are doing it too. When I feel like I can't do it, when I get to that point, like, how am I going to get this all done or to manage? I think of those moms in that room and know that there's the support out there and other women doing it, and I can do it too.
I love that. And I can't believe it was 8 years ago. I remember attending your very first meeting with your Moms in Coaching group, just to kind of learn from the administrator perspective, how I could best support you. At the time, I really hadn't had many women coaches that I was supervising that had children. So it was had a tremendous impact on me. And I can tell you, Brooke, I'm already hearing the volleyball coaches are discussing starting something similar as Moms in Coaching for the volleyball coaches out there that are mothers. So what you're doing is starting to spread throughout our country and is offering tremendous support to these women in coaching. Because you're right, the social roles between men and women at home and mothers, and the responsibility that usually falls on the mother in terms of taking care of the young ones, it does present a challenge when you're trying to maintain and thrive in a profession like coaching, where it's 24/7, 365. Could you share a little bit, Brooke, from your experience at Florida State? What were maybe some of the best practices in terms of support that you received? I know you mentioned Sue was a tremendous advocate and supporter for you. Was there anything that the administration provided that you would say should be a best practice that other schools and administrators should think about?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that can be done. And again, this is something we talk about in Moms in Coaching, that each institution is so different. And we all deal with just a very different landscape from program to program, staff to staff, institution to institution. And so it really, you do feel fortunate when you have people that you work with and people that you work for that are supportive. That can look like a lot of different things. So, some examples of it would be just being able to feel the freedom, honestly, that there's not going to be a penalty or repercussion for having to attend to a parenting obligation. And that looks a lot of different ways. And it starts with, that you work for, whether if you're an assistant coach, that's your head coach. If you're a head coach, that's your athletic director, and oversight. And really having that trust there that, okay, I'm not going to take advantage of this. I am not going to work, less or not take my job as seriously because I'm a mother. But there are things that I'm going to need to maybe not work the same hours as my counterpart who doesn't have children because my child has a doctor's appointment or needs to get picked up from school at a certain time. So it's that having that trusting relationship of, valuing the work that I do or the work that we do as mothers in the job, and also knowing that we're going to get the work done. It just may look a little different. Just feeling that kind of understanding is huge. And the other thing too, is simple things as being able to take Avery on a road trip when needed. For example, when I just come back from being on a little bit of maternity leave after I'd had her, took a month off from actually like being with the team. I stayed home I took 2 weeks off from just staying home. And then I started to work my way back into practices and home games. And then I was about a month later, maybe 6 weeks, then I began to travel with the team again and for recruiting. And there was a situation where I was still breastfeeding. And so I wanted to bring her. So while I was recruiting, they could watch her. And I could still have her with me and not be gone for, a 4-day stretch while I was breastfeeding. And just being able to have that opportunity, Coach Sue being okay with that. And then the administration being okay with that, with me bringing her on our charter plane and then traveling with her. That meant a lot to me. And just as just my mindset, I think Avery would have been fine if I had left her that long and she drinks out of a bottle or whatever and someone else watches her. But my mindset as a mother to know that she's, 6 weeks old, 7 weeks old, I don't have to leave her at home for these 4 days and I can still get my job done. Wow, that meant so much to me and just helped me be a better coach in those moments where we were traveling.
So good. And we're working on right now a toolkit, WeCOACH, as part of our resources that we're rolling out in celebration of the 50th anniversary of Title IX, a toolkit for administrators, best practices for supporting women in coaching. And certainly there will be a heavy emphasis on support for mothers in coaching. And a lot of that is inspired through the work that you've done and the leadership role you've taken, Brooke, to help support other women coaches out there who are mothers and are also able to really find tremendous success in the coaching profession while also serving as incredible mothers at home to their young children. We could talk all day on that subject, but I can't thank you enough for your leadership and the inspiration that you've provided to me as I'm now leading WeCOACH, and I certainly want our organization to be a national leader and a go-to resource for women out there, whether they're first-time mothers or are veteran coaches and have several children at home. We want to be a resource to support mothers in coaching. So thank you for everything that you've done. We're winding down on time here, but I would like to close out every podcast with this question. Obviously, WeCOACH, we exist to help elevate, recruit, and advance women in coaching. And I was just curious if Sue and Brooke, if you had thoughts on how we can move the numbers in terms of supporting and increasing the number of women coaches in all sports and levels.
Brooke, I'm going to toss it to you first.
Okay. Well, I'll just continue really quickly with the the line of the topic of conversation of the moms and coaching piece. And Vanessa, I'm so thankful that WeCOACH is an organization that values that and is providing resources and to administration and to coaches on what, supporting mothers. And I want to say just quickly why supporting mothers and coaching is so important to our profession. It's not just important to the mothers, for them to feel good and to be able to have a job and achieve, do all of the things we want to do. I believe, and one of the biggest things behind why we have moms and coaching as well, is that it's important to women's sports. It's important to sports and the impact that sports has ultimately on our society. When we see people of all different backgrounds, walks of life, involved in sports, it's good for society. When people feel supported, and no matter where they're coming from or what their lifestyle situation is, it's good for sports and it's good for society. So that's when mothers are supported in this profession. That means women will continue to coach. That will move the numbers of women in coaching, women in sports, which again is great for our student athletes to have women mentoring them, to keep women in a mentorship position where they're emulating what it looks like to be a great mother and to have a great career, where they are those resources for our young people to go to in all kinds of situations. It's just great to have that support because it's good for our sports and for society. And I believe that support moves the numbers of women in coaching and in sports.
I can't think of a better way to end my very first podcast than on that note. If she can see her, she can be her. Well said. And thank you, Brooke, for those thoughts. And thank you, Coach Sue and Brooke, again, for being with us today. Really excited to have you on my very first podcast episode. And thanks to those of you listening, WeCOACH Podcast. Thank you again to our sponsor, Hudl, and production partner, Wisp Sports. Please join us again on June 23rd, the 50th anniversary of Title IX, for a discussion with coaches who've authored chapters in an exciting book that was just released, Winning Ways of Women Coaches, featuring 20 of the most remarkable women coaches in the world. Follow us and share your comments on Twitter at WeCOACH and at Wisp Sports, or on Facebook at WeCOACH Sports and at Wisp Sports. Interested in learning more about any of our upcoming events, resources, membership, and donor options? Please visit our website at wecoachsports.org. Until next time, keep moving the numbers. We teach, we inspire, we motivate, we lead, we coach.